So you're active duty military, you're thinking about retirement or planning for the future, and you're trying to figure out how those other guys and gals that have retired are making so much bread, so much money. It always seems like they're balling. I mean, wouldn't you want to be on that level? Don't you want to make that kind of cash?
Hell yeah!
Well, this is what you have to do.
Work, earn more pay. Hard work, do it every day. Get up out of 2:45. Ready to go.
So, let's talk about this. Without getting into hard numbers, I'm going to give you the theory and philosophy behind the whole thing, and it works. Seen it many a times. It's the best kept secret, just to capitalize and make the most out of your retirement money. So typically, if you do 20 years in the military, you get 40% of your base pay. 40%. So more or less, if you're enlisted, 9 times out of 10, 20 years, you'll make it to Sergeant First Class. or E7. So we'll just look at that base pay. 20 years, E7. 30 years, you get 60%. Huge difference. Huge difference. Now, 30 years, you might retire out as in maybe E8 or maybe E9. You should be E8 at least. Huge difference when you look at that sliding scale. But we're going to talk about the 40%. Seen a lot of people do the 40%. On the officer side, it's a huge difference. A major will make, let's say, easily $50,000 a year, at 20 years if he retires. But let's just use this small number. Seen it happen. Get into the military, 18 years old. Do 20 years. You're about 38. Probably take a year or so off. Now you're about 40. Now this is where they make bank. They go into a second career. Yeah, I mean, let's say if we use $30,000 a year, you can't live off $30,000 a year, regardless of whatever locale you live in. And that's you being single at 40. And if you have a family, which 9 times out of 10, there's someone you're supporting at that age, you definitely cannot make it. So this is where you go into your second career. Where a lot of these people capitalize, best kept secret, is that they go government contractor. I mean, it could be, let's say, Boeing, it could be Lockheed Martin, it could be Northrop Grumman, it can be Khaki, it can be Booz Allen, it could be Jeeted. Like, I'm just spitting out all these names, but they go that direction. Just throwing contractor out there. You don't have to go contractor. A lot of these people tend to go contractor because what they did on the government side, the military side, translates into that government side. So it's so much easier of a lateral movement. I've seen it to where some people worked in the same building. They retired, took off the green suit, put on the nice blue suit with a tie, stayed in the same building, worked for the contracting company that worked in that building with them. And they're making, salary-wise, a lot more than they did when they were in the military. So you take that base salary that you're getting retired, and let's just do some basic math. You take that after 20 years, let's say $30,000, we're really lowballing. Then 40 years old, you jump into a contracting gig, and I'm just going to use that at the moment. And let's say, and I'm going to lowball it, let's say you're making $50,000. This is to start. This isn't to end. So now you have $80,000 worth of salary. A big plus is that the medical, you're not paying into the company's medical. You're going to pay into TRICARE. And active duty, I don't remember if you don't have to pay if you're retired, but I think there's a retired TRICARE. But let's just go by, if you're a reservist, for example, and you're using TRICARE, I'm just going to use those figures. That's like $200 a month. $200 a month versus 20% of your paycheck on the civilian side. Huge savings. Huge savings. So that second career is where they make up for that. It doesn't matter where you work. Let's say if you work at Walmart, that second career is where you work. Now, where you make up for it. Now, if that company has a 401k, you put into that 401k. If they do not, you have to do an IRA. The 401k, they have their percentage that they'll max. You want to max out on that. We'll do another video on that. We'll do another video on the blended retirement system, and we'll do one on TSP. That's where you make your bank. But this is about not doing any of those. And I mean, as far as like the TSP, this is just your basic military salary. So without any cost of living, hazard pay, any other stipends that are added to it. And then, so you run another 20 years. And so now when you're about 62 years old, if you want to retire then you pull your 401k. Then you have your military retirement that's still going to be coming in. That number will change throughout for the cost of living. Then, if you want to get your Social Security earlier, then you pull your Social Security. And that's how these guys are making bank on the end. A lot of times in the middle of it, they're making very good money because, let's say, this is another 20-year salary, another 20 years of work. So let's say 10 years, you should have had promotions, you should have progressed. So during that time period, they're living very well. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to work Department of Corrections. I had one officer that came from the Air Force, did 20 years Air Force, came into the Correction Department, and he's doing 20 years, or was finishing up 20 years on the correctional side. The correctional side stayed in New Jersey, we're law enforcement, so you're under the police and firemen's pension system. So he's getting a second pension off of his max salary. From there, 20 years, 25 years will get you 50% of your salary, I believe, and 30 years will get you 66 2/3, something along those lines. This is of that profession. Then you tie that into your military retirement on the end. This is where you make money. So, without beating us to the ground, and everybody needs to learn this, tell your younger soldiers when they first get in the military to start looking towards this. Now, we'll get into TSP because that's where you make your bang for your buck. We'll talk about that later. But leave some comments in the bottom, to try to help these soldiers out on making it in their second career. I believe once you get past 10 years of active duty, you might as well ride it out. You might as well ride it out because you just invested 10 years of your life into the military system or government system, and then you're going to drop off without anything to show for it. And then you'll do the rest of the time working somewhere else. Yeah, you can make it, but it's like you might as well get the most out of it. So without beating this thing down, 20 years military, get out, second career, 20 years, your second career, that's when the fireworks happen. On that note, have a good day, stay investing, and peace.
Ever